Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater, and today we're going to be talking about the problems Marvel's facing with Captain Marvel post Endgame. And yeah, a little bit with Brie Larson. Maybe not as much as you might think. But that being said, Endgame is out now, so there are going to be spoilers in this video. You have been warned. But the biggest problems that are going to come from having Carol Danvers in the MCU at this point has everything to do with the portrayal of the character on screen. Brie Larson was a lot better in the role in this movie than she was in, well, her own solo film. And that had everything to do with the fact that I think the directors fundamentally got the character. At least got what they could out of the character, considering that it was a Feige edict that she be included. They want her to lead the MCU over the course of the next 10 years, and that, of course, poses a massive, massive problem. And the reason why is because, well, she's overpowered. She is supremely overpowered, and in the MCU, and like I said, spoilers for Endgame abound, you have been warned, there's no longer a force that we've seen that can even do any damage to her on any front. Now, one of the cooler moments in Endgame is in that final battle when she shows back up and it shows the ships from Thanos's, or the guns from Thanos's ship pointing up to the sky, trying to aim at something entering the atmosphere. And of course, she plows right through it, taking it down, just like she did to Ronin's ships at the end of Captain Marvel. Interesting thing with that, though, is that she took out the ship, it crashed to Earth in Captain Marvel, she took out the ships in space, but yet none of the debris floated to the planet, and yet no one in the 1990s knew that it even happened, even though we had satellites, but that again is another plot problem that comes up in that movie. But when she lands on Earth, when she lands in the battle, and ultimately faces off against Thanos after the what I thought was actually a pretty cool scene involving her with all the other females that are there, all the other female Avengers, so to speak. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. I know it was a little bit shoehorned in, but I still thought it was pretty iconic and it was pretty cool, but it was ultimately pointless. It was absolutely pointless. She's got the gauntlet. She's going to be protected by everyone else who is not as powerful as her. It made literally no sense. Considering that she goes up and she fights Thanos one-on-one, he headbutts her, it does nothing. So he has to take out the Power Stone from the gauntlet, put it in his other hand, and then punch her in the face with it in order to get her off of him. It was the only time in either of those movies where Captain Marvel took a hit and it mattered. It did. It was the only time in those movies when Captain Marvel took a hit and it actually registered an impact. Other than that, there's literally nothing. And we can't sit there and say that the Power Stones are going to now play a problem, because they're not. They're gone. The other stones are gone. They've all been destroyed in this timeline. And at the end of Endgame, Cap went back and returned them all to their appropriate timelines. So there's nothing of there that can be even a problem at this point. So that becomes a weird thing, doesn't it? Right? Well, what are you going to do if you want her to lead A-Force, if you want her to lead an all-female Avengers? Is she just gonna like go, hey girls, like, why don't we like talk about our hairstyles? Even though she has the hairstyle you see on the screen. Very interesting choice. I know in the comics, Carol has shorter hair. But this wig was pretty bad on Brie Larson. It was pretty bad. And even there's a comment from Rocket in the movie about getting a haircut, which I thought was pretty funny that they referenced that. It looked pretty bad. It was a bad hair. It's a bad wig. It was a very bad wig, and it was a very bad haircut. And they should give her the long hair for the next movie. You know what I mean? Let's go back to the long hair. It looked perfectly fine. That's my own personal take on it. It looks okay in the comics, unless they're going to give her like the same style of hairdo in the comics. This whatever this is, inspired by Ellen DeGeneres, essentially, is not really how it works out. In fact, Grace Randolph is so in love with that haircut that she thinks that they are going to be pushing for an LGBT Captain Marvel, which is fine with me. I really don't care. But I think aesthetically speaking, that wig was bad. But her as a character coming into the MCU like this, now having defeated the greatest force in the universe thus far, now that they have access to, Doctor Doom and Galactus, what's going to happen to Captain Marvel? And this is going to be the problem. When you have a character who can't get hurt, how do you make that character ultimately viable? How do you make them viable in where there's going to be stakes on the table? One of the things that I feel Zack Snyder did masterfully with Superman and Man of Steel, as well as Batman v Superman. And I'll probably get a lot of crap about this in the comments, but I don't care. When he brought Superman into the fold and he gave him vulnerability in regards to humans, and the humans he cared about. And that's who Superman cared about. That's what got him to realize his powers, there was weight behind his powers. Ultimately, I feel it did a lot for the character. I've seen nothing like that here. I've seen nothing with Captain Marvel in either her standalone movie, where she was never in any real danger, period, and this movie where she only was in danger one time. But when you can plow through Thanos' warship and take it out with a couple key punches, like at this point, there's no point of anyone else even remotely fighting. It's like, oh damn, there's Captain Marvel. The party's over, pal. It's a problem, and it's going to be a problem for the MCU going forward. It's 100% going to be an issue for the MCU going forward. And unless they have a good way of making it work, I don't know. Will Captain Marvel 2 pull in $1 billion? I cannot see Carol Danvers sustaining another feature film on her own. It's kind of like Ant-Man. As much as you'd want to see a third Ant-Man movie, he's going to be around other people. He's going to have his supporting cast. They're not going to have the supporting cast for Captain Marvel 2 unless it's, Valkyrie or the Wasp or Wanda or, Okoye or Nebula or Gamora. Maybe even Black Widow when they inevitably bring her back, because they're going to. Now that time travel is in the mix, anything is possible. But I don't know. We spent 11 years watching characters with vulnerabilities and weaknesses have them be exploited in order to overcome the fight. And here you've got nothing. You've got an iconic scene with her and all the other female characters, which look cool, shoehorned, but look cool. And then you realize that she's in no danger whatsoever. So what's the point? What's the point? And I hope Feige realizes that. I hope they actually pay attention to that. I hope they realize that the future of the MCU resting on this character might actually do more damage than not, simply because there's nothing there for the audience to relate to. They didn't play up the I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar angle, which I figured they might, but they didn't, which I'm happy about, because I'm not really big on the whole identity politics aspect of it. Have the character, let her be the character. That's cool. But it also feels like they just don't really know where they want to take her. And I think the Russos did the best job they could. But I also think that when she entered the battlefield at the end there, it was like, oh, that was pretty cool, but now she's on the battlefield, so, okay. They're going to give her a cool moment, which they did, but it's also unearned, in my opinion. There was that line from War Machine early on, like, hey, new girl, all of us here are about that superhero life, because they've all worked together, and she kind of comes in. Well, I guess at the time, 5 years she had been working with them at that time, so she would be then part of that. But that's one of those tell us, don't really show us situations, which I'm not a big fan of, which is one of the things I really didn't care for in her movie, was a lot of the telling us, not showing us specifically. And I feel that did a lot to undercut the character. And here I feel it's the same kind of way. But who knows? Maybe they're going to pull from a good comic line. People seem to like the character. We'll have to wait and see. And $1 billion, you can't really argue with that. But we'll have to, again, wait and see if it has any actual impact on the future of the franchise or anything else. But anyway, I leave it to you, your thoughts, your opinions. Do you think that there's going to be a Captain Marvel problem going forward? Do you think it's going to be solvable? If so, how would you do it? Remember the problem here is not recasting her or exiting the character entirely. So think about that one before you leave a comment, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.